Iran's regime makes good on their threats to target American forces, but the threat might not be limited to Americans overseas.
If ever there's going to have a Hezbollah cell or a Hamas cell act in the United States in a violent way, it's now. Their backs against the wall. Both organizations are Iranian-backed all the way. We also know that there are lone sympathizers, many of whom have come out, you see in these protests.
Of course, we were just discussing Iran sponsors a number of terrorist proxies that could threaten Americans. And Attorney General Pam Bondi gave a disturbing answer when asked about a potential sleeper cell or sleeper cells at a congressional hearing last summer. Listen.
Back to Iran, they have sleeper cells, we think, here?
We have thus far arrested 1,500 illegal Iranians in our country. That is something that I would like to talk about in a classified setting. So but yes, have they invaded our country? Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, with that in mind, we asked former acting DHS Secretary Chad Wolf to join us tonight. He politely obliged. Chad, thank you for joining us tonight. Listen, on this topic, I think that it's important to point out to Americans that at least since 2001, if you go to war, even overseas, against radical Islam, that war finds its way here. And it's not a war that only the Department of War fights. And I'd love for you to tell us about that.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. And you're exactly right. Like, anytime that there's offensive operations by the United States government overseas, you have to anticipate that somehow, some way, that's going to find its way back to the homeland, or at least you need to prepare for that. And so that's what the Department of Homeland Security does. When I was there, we did that for, the attack on General Soleimani. And what the department does is it goes shields up on a variety of different sectors to include cybersecurity, but also border security, aviation security, and it goes on and on and on. So that's likely what the department is doing now. If I had to guess, I would say that probably the most concerning threat vectors as it relates to here in the homeland is one is the cybersecurity attack by the Iranians or their proxies. And then two would be either cells that are here in the United States or these lone individuals that are here in the United States. And they may not be Iranian. They just may be sympathetic to the cause. And then take that out on everyday Americans. And I think that's what we saw in Austin, although that investigation continues as well.
You're absolutely right about that. We appreciate you being here tonight. You know, we've been talking about it thus far in the show, but we're in a partial government shutdown. We know ICE is funded, but DHS, you got our TSA agents working without a paycheck. We thank those that are showing up anyway. But, you know, we've been talking about how now probably is not the time to not fund these important agencies and these important departments. What kind of impact does this partial government shutdown have on DHS, and how concerned should we be, because we're in this state and this status right now with everything going on overseas?
Yeah, well, obviously, funding the department's critically important, particularly in a time like this. You wouldn't want the Department of War operating without full funding, and you don't want the Department of Homeland Security operating without full funding. There are men and women of DHS that go to work every day protecting the American citizens as they travel, as they transport, and as they do other things here in the country. And so whether it's aviation screeners, our Coast Guard men and women who are stopping very dangerous threats from coming into the homeland, as well as our cybersecurity agencies. So all of those are critically important as they continue to miss paychecks because of the DHS being shut down. It's going to have an effect on the morale, on their focus. Are they going to have to leave to take other jobs? Unfortunately, some of these employees live paycheck to paycheck. And so they're happy to do their mission. They're all patriots. They all signed up for this, but they also expect Congress to do its job and to fund the organization and the department. And so really, really important now more than ever, we need the department funded and so that those employees don't have to worry about where the next paycheck is coming from.
Chad, thank you so much. Molly Line here. You highlighted something a moment ago when you talked about ideological threats here in the country. And right now, even just in 2025, there were a number of different kinds of attacks. There was a truck ramming at the very beginning of the year in New Orleans. In D.C., horrifically, there was a gunman that attacked at the Jewish Museum there. And then a Molotov cocktail attack out in Boulder, Colorado, all in 1 year, different ideologies. How do you protect with these lone actors out there? What can Americans do all across the country that are concerned about this? Not so much the Iranian sleeper cell, but just anyone inspired.
Yeah, these are the very difficult attacks to guard against and to prevent. And so it's a joint effort, not only of the Department of Homeland Security, but state and local law enforcement, and particularly the FBI. Over 200 joint terrorism task forces are out there operating, looking for specific intelligence, going back through the information that they have to say, did we miss anything? Do we see anything that is of concerning to us? So as it relates to the lone individual out there, and again, they don't have to be, they don't have to have come from Iran. But they could be sympathetic to the cause of somehow. They could have been radicalized over the internet, and then they decide to take action. Those are the individuals, and those are the types of attacks, I think, that keep most Homeland Security officials up at night, because sometimes you can't see that coming. These are individuals that may have not popped up to law enforcement. They have no record, in a sense. But yet they decide now, because they're upset or whatever it might be, now is the time to take actions. Deadly actions against everyday Americans. And so that's where our law enforcement apparatus comes in, to make sure that we're trying to detect those individuals, prevent those types from occurring, and then obviously protecting everyday Americans. But I don't think it needs to be lost. If you go back to the 4 years of Joe Biden, over 1,500 Iranian nationals crossed that southern border, and over 50% were released by the Biden administration. And they haven't really said, they didn't say while they were in power, why they released over 700 of them. All Iranian nationals are special interest aliens, which means they possibly have a tie to terrorism. So they should have enhanced vetting, but we just don't know that because the Biden administration didn't release any of that information.
Yeah, it's malfeasance. I think a lot of people would agree with that. Let me build off of something Molly asked you. What's the sober messaging to the American people? Because let's be honest here, Chad, there is a high degree of probability that something will happen. We don't want that. We don't want to put that out there, but it's likely to happen. What do you say to the American populace who is concerned about this?
Yeah, well, first and foremost is stay vigilant. If you should continue to go out, we should continue to operate as normal, but just understand your surroundings, understanding where you go. If you see something, say something to a law enforcement officer of some kind. If you're walking, you're jogging, you're doing whatever else, and you feel like, hey, something I just saw just doesn't feel right to me. That individual or groups of individuals are kind of looking a little differently. Let a law enforcement officer know that. Let them adjudicate what's going on there. And obviously, you don't. But again, just stay vigilant, understand your surroundings. But I think most importantly is we don't want to let foreign actors dictate how we live our lives. Americans should continue their way of life, continue what they do day in and day out, just a little bit more vigilance, and understand your surroundings.
Chad Wolf, thank you for joining us tonight. Thanks for bringing your expertise and experience. As Americans, we hope that folks like you have our back right now.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.